Hello, everyone. This is Christian Blaney in Christian Blaney's Cockpit. I have a habit of always turning off the song Only a Mother, and I'm going to just keep it up as long as I can. This is actually my second show back since spring break, and I am supposed to have a guest today. Not sure where she is, but she's a pretty responsible person, so I'm sure she'll come through at some point, and there she is. Cassidy Proctor, what's up, dude?
Hey.
Let me turn on your mic real quick. This is perfect timing. You just came in. If you want to slap on those headphones, go for it. And can you hear me just fine? Can you hear me just fine?
Not through this.
Just turn that up until it feels right. All set? Cool. So you talk a little bit, Cassidy, just so I can balance the voice here.
My name is Cassidy, and I'm a junior.
All right. Well, sick. We're all set. Well, good to have you in the studio, for sure. Now, don't be too worried. There's probably not too many listeners, but I'm hoping there's at least a couple. And so, Cassidy, just introduce yourself, basically, just so people understand who they're listening to, and you can close that door if you want.
Oh.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm Cassidy. I'm from Denver, Colorado. I am a political science and education major.
If you can get that any closer to yourself, I just want the people to be able to hear you.
Yeah.
Nice.
And so I have a lot of interest. My main interest in what I want to do is improve the education system in America, because I think education is the key to fixing all of our problems.
Nice. Education's also been on my mind a lot recently, in the past week or so, mostly because of that one new Netflix documentary that came out, Operation Varsity Blues. Have you seen it?
I have not.
Dude, you gotta see it. You would love it.
It's on
Netflix, Operation Varsity Blues. It's about this one guy named Rick Singer, who was just someone that would help kids get into the colleges that they wanted to. And he was kind of high profile. He would keep people into USC and like a bunch of Ivy League schools, Princeton, whatever, because he was exploiting this weird loophole because he had so many connections in the higher up education, where he could literally pay his way into getting kids where they want to be from rich families. So instead of paying $70 million for a building, which will most likely get your kid into Princeton, you only have to pay $700,000 because Rick Singer was paying off everyone in the process. So yeah, interesting stuff. At least I think it's bad that there's a lot of wealth. Or wealth plays a big role in how education works. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's really interesting because there are different directions you can take it in, but I genuinely think that education for college should be free, just because, first of all, it is a pain to pay so much money to just learn things, and there's so many disparities between how far people can get in life based on their education level. But it's also really interesting because kind of the value of a undergraduate degree has dropped in recent years.
Yes.
Making it, harder to, if everyone has a degree, then there's less value, and people aren't really yes, that makes you stand out. But I think just having more people be educated leads them to find more ways to be productive in society and be helpful and find their own kind of niche in society.
Yeah, there's that kind of weird thing right now, how you say, pretty much everyone has a college degree. The value is obviously down. And there's two things that I think about when I hear that. One thing is that I'm afraid education is a bubble, so that we're paying way more for something that has a much smaller value than we think. similar to like a housing crash, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing I think about is then like if everyone has a college degree, then you start like thinking, okay, Princeton is a better college than Principia. Why is that? There's a lot of things you can attribute to, but one thing is that it costs a lot of money to be there, and it's pretty selective. And so the cost of a lot of money to be there is that's a problem because, you know, if you have a lot of money to be there, right, you get into a position where you still have a lot of money to be there, and then then your kids still have a lot of money to be there, and it's like I think it's called nepotism, but I see that a lot like in the education community maybe.
Yeah, it's one of those things where kind of how the family you're born into plays a lot into where you're going to go in life and how you're going to get there. And one of the equalizers in life is education, which, well, in theory, it's education. If education is done right, it can be a great equalizer for a lot of people. However, yeah, exactly what you brought up, the fact that, like, if your family has a lot of money and you can get into a school that costs more, typically they're going to have more resources, more people to network with, and that will get you farther in life than
the actual education.
Yeah.
And that's how I'm feeling at Principia. Like, at least I think that a lot of the classes that I am taking are helpful, but there's also a lot of classes that I have taken and am taking that I'm probably not going to be using too much, and the connections within the classes are ultimately the better thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something I really struggle with because I'm not very good at, like, social networking, and that's something that, like...
But you are very good at academics from what I know of you.
Yeah.
So it's this weird disproportionate deal.
I'm pretty good on the academic side. I am not very good on the social networking side, and that's something that I'm seeing is going to be of a lot more value to me. Because, like, once you get to a certain point, no one's going to be looking at your college transcript. Like, that I was having a conversation with my dad, and he showed looked at me and it was like, pass the class. I don't care what grade you get. And I was like, cool, I'm glad that I have your support in just getting by and making sure that, like, other aspects of my life are taken care of, like mental health and my social life.
Yeah.
But yeah, this social networking aspect is so important, especially in politics, which...
Is that what you're going into?
Yep, if I'm going to go
into...
You're
going to make a big change, that's probably what you got to do.
Yep, if I'm going to go into changing education policy through politics, I should probably have a good network around me, and that terrifies me.
Really? Yeah, are you worried about your, like, your 5-year plan?
I wasn't until this semester.
Really?
When, what was it? I think it was 2 nights ago. I was...
Oh, so recent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, recent. 2 nights ago, I was reading an email that one of my advisors sent me, and I started seriously contemplating whether or not I should go to grad school.
Yeah.
Because that was just one of the things where I was like, you know what, I'm done with with my personal education. I'm sick and tired of, like, trying to do research and writing papers, and I want to go out into the real world and do things. And that was my plan for a while, and then I read an email from my advisor, and I was like, oh, maybe I should genuinely consider going to grad school and looking at things, like really getting a deep dive into, you know, education and educational policy, and because I haven't really done that much here. I've learned about education in general and politics in general, but never really combining the two.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
It's weird because I have a weird flipped view. So I'm not a very good student. So it doesn't really make sense for me to go to grad school. I'm not a terrible student, but I'm definitely struggling in a lot of ways. So I'm not planning on going to grad school, but I'm not worried about my 5-year plan as much because I have this. This is my passion. I really love talking to people and just getting better at it. And so this is a portfolio I'm putting together for maybe working for a radio company or some kind of media network, like a private media thing, whatever works. Yeah, I'm just not setting the bar super high. I'm like that's my whole thing.
Yeah, I'm noticing that people around me, who are typically very ambitious have kind of settled onto a less ambitious goal for them.
Yeah.
Purely out of, like, the stress and the fact that, like, this world has gone to...
It's gotten bad.
Yeah.
It's gotten bad. Financially and everyone, like,
socially, economically.
You can really tack them off.
Emotionally.
Yeah.
Mentally.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It has not been fantastic. So a lot of people are like, okay, yeah, change the world and all, but what am I going to lose in the process of changing the world?
Also, you got to sacrifice your financial gains, everything, to make sure you get where you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's something about America. At least you have, in most cases, the option of trading in all your money to maybe getting into a better place. Like, there's some countries that you can't really do that. So that's a plus.
Yeah.
But obviously there are advantages, as we said before.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about, I think this actually does lead in, because if we, here. So, are you a fan of the idea of universal healthcare?
Yeah.
Okay, I am too. And if we open the door to that, then we open the door to a lot more government funding, or many things, because it'll be referenced. But I guess what's your basic idea of government funding's role in someone's life? Like, I'm personally a small government person, but I think a lot of my stances are like, I think there's a lot of things that the government could be taking care of. Like, I think our defense bill is way too big, and we're not getting the value we should be getting out of it. Our F-35 new fighter jets that came out in like 2013, I think, they cost $150 million. They are not worth $150 million, I can tell you. Like from just looking at the performance and the armament and the HUD abilities, heads-up display abilities, it's not worth $150 million. It's worth maybe $30 million. What one of our regular like F-16 fighter jets cost. So I don't know. What do you think? I don't think we're getting the bang for our buck. So I think we can be thinking about what kind of social programs we should be working with now.
Yeah, I'll admit I don't really pay too much attention to money and how much things cost or how expensive things can get.
Yeah.
Mainly because when I was growing up, my dad got laid off at the end of 2008, but my mom...
I think same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2008 was a great year for layoffs.
Great year. Yeah.
But my mom picked up a job. There was like a brief period of time where both of them were working, and then my dad got laid off and my mom continued with her job. It was definitely a decrease in our like income salary.
Yeah.
But what I learned from that and from going to the upper school and traveling and taking advantages of opportunities at the upper school was that my mom was adamant on the fact that do what you want to do and the money will come.
Yes. Yeah.
And
that's what I'm starting to think about too.
Yeah. So that's something that like I grew up with and I live by. So, and I apply that to every situation, including like government spending.
Sure, I get it.
So I am also a fan of small government. I think people should be able to like live their lives and do what they want to do and have little government interference with that. That being said, I am a fan of like zoning laws for alcohol and tobacco. I am also for more gun control.
What do you mean zoning laws?
So the fact that you can't have alcohol in a certain distance from schools.
Sure, that's fine.
So I think that government should be involved with substances that can harm people, and limiting those, and making sure that they're not getting into underage hands and so on and so forth.
Sure.
But then on the flip side of that, like, I don't care who you marry. I don't care, like, what you identify as. I'm going to be respectful, and the government should be respectful of that as well.
Yeah, sure.
Back to government funding, sure. I agree. Our military bill is astronomical.
It's crazy, man.
For no reason.
Yeah.
One of the first things I learned in one of my political classes was that when one neighboring country builds up their military, the countries around them build their military up too, because they see what the original country was doing as protection as a potential threat to them.
It's like an Israel kind of situation.
Yeah. So we don't need this much money spent on our military. We're not being threatened by, well, that's changed in recent years.
Yeah, China's looking a little weird right now.
Yeah, Russia's always been
a little sketch. It's those countries that don't have good journalism. Those are the countries we're worried about. Isn't that weird? Yeah.
When you don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, we still are spending way too much money on our military, and if we could divert a portion of that to education, we'd be so much better off as a country. America's kind of been falling down the ranks of math and science and English or literature.
What do you mean when you say put that money towards education? And what points do you want to stress?
What do you mean by what?
Does that mean like teacher funding, funding for facilities? What are we talking about?
I think my priority is teacher funding, because if you can pay teachers as much as you pay doctors and lawyers and whatnot, like, phenomenal. That's amazing, because they are they are teaching the next generation that's going to start running the country. So if you can be like, oh yeah, you are bringing great value to the country, we should probably pay you for that value. You're going to get better quality teachers. You're going to get more people interested into the teaching career. Because while you may have a lot of people who are interested in teaching, the lack of pay is a huge
deterrent for good teachers.
Yeah.
Because they could be doing other things.
So if we can solve that problem, that'll be good. And then, like you said, facilities, just if you go to a public school and you walk through the hallway, it's pretty depressing. Like there are some.
Do you mean like the atmosphere? Because I feel that. I get that one.
The atmosphere and the building itself. There are some public schools that are phenomenal, usually in white, rich areas.
Or Asian rich areas.
Where property taxes are higher and people can pay more and contribute more. Also, usually in white areas, you have a stay-at-home parent that can get involved in PTA more often. And just that parents' ability to volunteer time changes the school atmosphere pretty quickly. It creates more buy-in for everyone around there. But when you go to lower class neighborhoods, usually you have both parents working, so they can't contribute that time. And then, water fountains don't work, or tiles are falling from the ceilings, or there's...
Brentwood's a public high school, is that correct? We used to run track there.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. That place doesn't look fantastic. And I'll tell you, it's not that far away from town and country, location-wise.
Yeah.
When Parkway's really nice. I think Parkway's really nice, at least.
The middle school that I went to, on one side was a gated white community with nice houses, and then walking down the street, totally safe, totally comfortable. And then on the other side of the school was a lower class Latino neighborhood that I personally wouldn't walk through at night.
Yeah.
But what I found, I was one of 5 white kids in my middle school.
Really?
Yeah, it was an amazing learning experience. I learned a lot about how other people lived and just the struggles that they faced, because coming from my middle class white family that always supported me, I had a very naive picture of the world around me. And then I went to middle school, and I would spend time around friends who were like, oh yeah, my dad's working the night shift and my mom's working here, and I have to pick up a job doing this and that to, get dinner on the table and do all these things. Or, yeah, my neighbor got arrested last night for doing this or that. And I never experienced that before. So it was a very eye-opening experience of how people lived and the importance of, being in a diverse area. It was an incredibly hard experience because I got bullied a lot.
For being white? Or for what? For being in a middle-class family?
No, I was an odd kid.
Yeah, just in general?
Yeah, so being different visually didn't help from the people around me.
Oh, you look different?
Just being white and blonde and skinny and small, I was a pretty easy target for bullying.
Yeah.
But it definitely, I'd go home crying a lot, and my mom would be like, you can change schools, and I was very stubborn. Still am, and I was like, no, I want to stick it out.
Yeah, why didn't you change schools?
I have loyalty issues. If I start somewhere, I'm usually going to finish there.
Even if it's not good for you?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Have you psychoanalyzed that at all?
I try not to.
What? Come on.
I mean, I'm even facing challenges with that, like now at, summer camps that I work with and other people that I hang out with, of just like...
You mean the summer camp that you work at?
Yes.
The single one.
The single one that I work at.
Hence the loyalty situation?
Yes.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of faith that places can change and improve. And that people around me can change and improve. And that's a good thing that I would like to keep. But I also need to balance the, like, okay, this is actually starting to affect me mentally and I need to move.
Yeah.
So we see how things play out. But I stayed at Lake, and I'm proud that I did, because it was definitely challenging. But it was also like, I learned so much from staying there and sticking through it.
I bet.
And just being surrounded by people who were minorities every other aspect of their life, that when they came to school, they could be a part of a group. And then, yeah, it was very interesting thinking of myself as like a minority for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and then like walking through the white neighborhood to get back to like my house, and just, yeah.
Blending in, sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were at Lincoln Middle School? Is that what you said?
Lake Middle School.
Lake. Okay,
Yeah.
I was about to say, Link.
Yeah, Lake.
There's something to go into there, but yeah. What do you think of Link, though, the school? Because it's in Colorado, right?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. Isn't that like right next to AU?
Yeah. I was like, which? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're down to change the education system, and since we've been in school, it's been mostly math, like science, writing, and
yeah, a lot of That's something that was actually talked about a lot in a character education class that I took here. Was the fact that like a lot of schools have been focusing around like STEM and English and writing and kind of like your hard skills that you need to learn. But because we were so focused on that, we forgot to teach character. And we forgot to teach morality. And a lot of people argue that should be left up to the homes. To
the athletic institutions. Like I learned most of my stuff from athletics.
Mm-hmm. And family life and athletics and whatnot. And my argument to that is like, yeah, but the people that I went to middle school with, they didn't have home lives that could support that. We didn't have athletic teams that supported that. We had athletics at the school, but they were focused on like keeping kids safe and like teaching kids fundamentals instead of like teaching them character. And you learn character by learning the fundamentals, but not every kid participated in sports, and not every kid had home lives to go back to that were going to be a supportive environment of that.
Yeah.
So leaving it up to other systems that aren't stable is not a sustainable way to teach morality and character education. So that's another reason why I'm really glad that I stayed, is because I could sit there and be like, yeah, but like, because right now I hang out with a lot of white middle class, middle class people.
Most people at Print are.
Yeah.
For the most part, at least, yeah.
So I there's not a whole lot of diversity in my life, because I go from here to camp, so I have white Christian Scientists all day, every day.
Yeah, I mean, those are great people, but
they're phenomenal.
But there's definitely a thing that a lot of people miss, or at least that I've missed. It hasn't affected me too much. I think I'm pretty sympathetic to I guess communities that haven't gotten the good length of the straw. But
the lack of diversity, when you live your life full of the same people, you fail to empathize and connect with the other. And if you can't connect with the other becomes the enemy. That's just basic human nature. If you don't understand someone, you avoid them, or you belittle them so that you are safe.
So are you of the philosophy then that that war is something that's just going to be part of humans forever?
No. I think education has a role to play in it. I think if we can include diversity in education, then you have no reason to fear the other, because the other is your friend. And I think America is a great place for that because we have so many diverse communities. Canada is another good example of that. They have a lot of diversity that they
especially around
build
like
up.
Toronto, I think.
Mhm.
That's where the hub of that is.
Yeah. So just like just including more diversity into your neighborhoods and your education and your, my mom has this cool idea of, having low-income housing built into high-income housing areas because gentrification is like a really big issue that my neighborhood has faced. And it's heartbreaking because I can see the growth and the beauty of neighborhoods that have raised housing prices, but I also see everything that they lose when they raise housing prices and the culture that disappears because your Latino neighbors can no longer afford to live there. Like, you lose so much by kicking people out. And it's not worth it, in my eyes. So my mom has this idea of, like, you have to, if you're going to build a giant apartment complex, you have to integrate low-income housing into your high-income housing apartment complex.
Yeah.
And she gave an example that this is done in New York, but one of the problems New York has had is that they have a separate entrance for low-income people versus high-income. And that causes a lot of problems because it segregates people, and that's not good.
There's not as much like, hey, how you doing, Ron? Like in the lobby of the apartment. That's what you mean?
Yeah, and it others people further. It's like, oh, I'm not good enough to walk through that door. I have to walk through this door.
Yeah, but there's that thing though. Like if you're paying more money for a house, you're kind of paying money not to live near poor people. Like that's the whole thing. Even people that come from extremely like impoverished areas, and we see this all the time in the rat community. They'll move away from that impoverished area, and not spend as much time back in their hood.
Yeah, and I understand the appeal of like wanting to get away from certain communities, but if you take a low-income community, what's the word? You take a low-income community, destroy it, build back a high-income community. You haven't done anything.
You haven't gotten rid of the...
You just moved the problem to a different place.
Mm-hmm. We're really good at that. America's super good at... Because we got a lot of space to move things to, man.
Yeah.
Well, that was a big issue with in the 1930s when Latino movies were moving into I guess like built up cities, and that's why like Reefer Madness was published. Like it was just this huge like I guess anti-Mexican thing, but and anti-Mexican and anti-black thing, mostly anti-Mexican, except painted over as a anti-marijuana or wild Mexican weed, which they grouped together with hemp, which is not psychoactive whatsoever, and then we missed out on 100 years of development of the best plant made for making things ever. Like,
Yep. Racism in America has destroyed American culture.
I agree.
Progress.
We've missed out on a lot of progress for sure. In the same way we look at like South Africa, like dang, they missed out on a lot of just progress in general. Israel as well, they missed out a lot of progress. Just apartheid states.
Yep.
It's tough. But anyway, that was a tangent.
Yeah. But if you take your low-income community and add high-income people into that community, you then add resources to the community because there are people that can pay for more, give more. The maid who cleans your house doesn't come from the other side of town. She comes from across the hall or from the rooms downstairs or however the building decides to play it out. But you have this a greater sense of community, and you build that ability to walk down the street and say hi to your Latina neighbor, your African American friend, just by seeing more people, the fear of more people disappears.
I feel like the younger generation, meaning like you and me, who's kind of going into the world right now, is down for those kind of ideas and like alternate ways to have a civil society. that we haven't really explored that often. We're down to check that out. But the majority of the population might be a little weird on that. And most of that is because if there's not financial motivation, there's probably not going to be anything going on. Is there a way that you see that being implemented?
I think it involves a lot of patience and a lot of persistence. Which is something I can definitely work on, because people who are older than me and act more immature than I do, I lose patience for instantly, because I'm like, no, you're supposed to be better than me.
Yeah, no, I understand what you mean.
You've had longer time on this earth to figure this out. Why are you acting worse than I am?
Yeah. How am I here already? You're not. No,
yeah.
I feel it.
But I think it takes a lot of patience and a lot of having the ability to re-educate people and to sit there and be like,
it's tough, man.
It is
re-education.
It's
we know what what happened in Germany, after their entire youth was everything I learned was wrong.
Yeah.
Damn.
It's something where you have to, when you're working with adults who are stuck in one mindset, it's acknowledging and validating that mindset and then adding more to it. And some people, you can do this very logically. You can say, oh, well, if you would like less gun control because you find it as an infringement on your rights, can you see why women would want the option of abortion because it is an infringement on their body to say otherwise?
People usually value pretty similar, values.
Yeah.
On both sides of the political spectrum, yeah.
Yeah, our core basics, pretty similar. And, in my political behavior class, we found that, America's not as partisan as they like to believe.
That's one of the reasons I started my radio show, because I was I know there's people with really, really different political beliefs than me, and I don't even think we're that different. I had Dean Colarossi on, him and I don't agree on a whole lot, but I'm pretty much center, and we had a great conversation, no problem.
Yeah. America's not as partisan as I think it is. Your neighbor is not the enemy. Just because they identify with a different party, you are... If people calmed down and talked about politics, they would see that they're not that different and be better politically sophisticated, would be better citizens, would understand the world better, all that.
Well, I think not only do we need to see our neighbors, not the enemy, but we got to see ourselves as not our neighbor's enemy. Mm-hmm. I think that's where a lot of healing really comes, and I've been working with that a little bit. You feel me?
Yep.
Well, cool, man. Let's see. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about? Oh, yeah. Any passions, things you've been thinking about a lot?
AJR just released their album.
I remember you're a big
night.
AJR fan.
Big fan. I went to their concert at Red Rocks a couple years ago.
In where?
In Colorado.
Colorado, okay, cool.
Yeah, the Red Rocks Theater, which if you ever have an opportunity to see a concert there, do. It is it's like a huge amphitheater. Is it outside?
Okay, nice. I like that.
Yeah, it is one of the most phenomenal spots to see a concert.
Cool, and you saw AJR there.
Yeah, and they are amazing because they do a lot of storytelling in their concerts, so it's not just one song after the other, but
And they got deep pockets now, so they can do it real good.
Yeah. This one was their Neo Theater album, and it was phenomenal. Mm-hmm. I have started listening to their newest album, and their songs made me cry.
Really?
It's just it.
Because they're good, or you relate with them?
Both. They're beautifully done music-wise. It sounds amazing, and there are little transitions and just specks of things throughout their song that just are phenomenal.
Feel right. Yeah.
Yeah. But then content-wise, they have a song about missing socks. And
really?
Yeah, they're why am I always missing socks? And then it goes from, I'm tired of missing socks. I've bought a new pair of socks. Hopefully someday these socks are going to miss me. Because it's oh, my socks are probably off having an adventure and I'm stuck here. And then at the end of the song, it's I hope I'm having an adventure and my socks are stuck somewhere. Just wanting to be outside and doing things and participating in the world and discovering new things and not being able to do that because of the pandemic or financial situations or just like being stuck where you are in the moment.
Being at college.
Yeah.
Like everything that I want to be doing is actually back in Maryland, but I have to be here for a bit.
Yep. And then they have a song about, you know, this guy named Joe who used to bully them in their way of like.
Joe is such an AJR villain name. Like just
it
like
really
so
is, yeah.
anything super regular is yeah.
But just the fact of like, you know, I should be leaving you back at school and I shouldn't be thinking about you when I'm thriving in the middle of my career. But every now and then I'll be thriving and you will slip into my thought of like, is this cool enough for you, Joe? Is this good enough for you? And it's just like, it's interesting because it shows how like bullying can follow you throughout your entire life,
Well,
even if it's
shows how
weird.
your childhood affects you.
Yeah.
That's the big thing. That's what I think about all the time.
And so it was just one of those things of like, oh yeah, what am I holding on to that I need to let go of in order to move further and farther away.
Yeah, that's fair. It's weird. I listen to a ton of podcasts. I don't know how much I do, but a lot. and it's pretty constant that people bring on, like, who the host that I listen to, that they'll bring on people and they'll talk about, like, their childhood. And there's, like, almost always, like, some set of trauma that they're still thinking about when they're, like, 30. Like, yeah, about a bully. On, I think it was Joe Rogan's podcast. There's this one guy on who he's a big guy for a charity in, I want to say Uganda, for the pygmies. And he's still thinking about, like, how this one dude bullied him when he was in middle school. Like, he has to tie it back.
Yeah, middle school is awful.
Middle school's a tough one.
I feel so bad for anyone in middle school. It's just never a fun experience.
My middle school wasn't too bad. It was a really small one, though. It was like a class of 18 people. So everyone knew everyone. My issue was that I had a big problem lying. And that's something that I struggled with for a long time that I recently tackled. But just like a huge problem with lying. And so I'd like made up like half my life to people that I was growing up with. I was like, damn, like how am I going to be actually Christian Blaney? And so I guess I got to press the restart button. And then I go to high school and then I did the same thing. So it's like, oh, old habits, you don't really kick them that easy.
Yep.
So that's what I think about when it's like we got to restructure society with the pretense that everyone has these, like, everyone that's going to do anything, like make a difference, has these super hard set, like, beliefs or habits, like social habits that we all got to work with to make this happen.
Yeah, I feel like at the same time, I'm both, humans deserve so much sympathy and empathy because you're never going to know exactly what people are going through. So every chance you get, you need to treat them with the utmost respect and the utmost kindness and just, give them as many chances as they need. Versus the other side of me where it's like, I have no patience for people who are going to waste my time and belittle me. I have to move forward on my life, and they need to move forward on theirs, and progress has to be made.
I would love you to talk to, like, an MI6 gang member. I really I really would love to see that conversation.
It's just here's what it is. It's principle and love. How do you balance I have so high, my expectations for you are so high. You are going to reach these goals, but doing that in a loving way that isn't going to destroy a poor soul. Yeah,
I feel like I never thought about it that way. Balancing love and principle. Yeah, because, I was recently scolded for, I was about to not be let into break housing because of principle. I applied really late because I didn't know that I couldn't just stay in my room. My mistake. It just didn't come across my path. That's what I needed to do. And so I was about to be not let into break housing, but luckily Mark decided to err on the side of love instead of principle in this one. But he did bring up, like, hey, on principle, I don't want to do this. So.
Yeah, it's something that, like, I found Christian Science communities really struggle with. Which is weird because you'd think with all the knowledge and all the teachings we have from the Bible and the science and health and all the conversations we have that loving people with principle would be easier for us. But it's a very hard balance to strike. And it's something that if a lot of people want to err more on the side of loving.
Yes.
And I get that. I love that.
I think I do too.
Yeah.
Most of the time. I think that's a good thing, right?
Yeah, loving is phenomenal. But when it gets in the way of growth and development and acknowledging the fact that, like, sometimes people need to be told no, or sometimes people need to, you know, not be allowed to do a certain thing, or in order to learn a lesson and become better, or people need to be held accountable. That's another big thing of, like, I love this person so much, why would I hold them accountable for the actions that they do? When the reality is, you should love a person so much that you hold them accountable. That holding people accountable shouldn't be viewed as something that
but then they might hate you.
If it's done properly, you will have probably a period of time where they don't talk to you or are a little bit bitter about a situation. And that's just because the human defense has come up. You got called out on something you knew was wrong, or, you know, you got called out for a pattern of behavior. Your human defense is going to come up. That's fine. That's normal. That's natural. The response to the defense shouldn't be, oh, well, I called you out on this one thing and now you hate me forever. Let people have the opportunity to learn and to come back from, you know, their initial reaction to something. No one should be taken, you know, people's initial reactions shouldn't be taken at face value.
They should be taken with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, because you really get what someone gets in the situation maybe like weeks, if not months later, depending on what it is.
Yeah, so by, you know, giving people the opportunity to be like, you know what? No, I don't think this is going to work out. And I'm doing this out of the, you know, protection of the people around me, of myself, of you, of whoever, whatever. No.
Sure.
People don't like to be told no, so they tend to put their defense up and, you know, lash out, be bitter, try to find a way to make the answer yes, so on and so forth. But by standing your ground and by offering, you know, an olive branch and saying, hey, this wasn't a personal attack, this wasn't anything, you know, against you, this is the answer and the outcome, what can we do to make it better? What can we do to maybe have the answer be yes later? Or, you know, in general, with holding people accountable and just being like, hey, I'm tired of this pattern of behavior, and I know you can do better than that. How can we help you be better?
What do you think then? I don't know if you know much about the LA tent like situation, but there's a lot of tents in LA, and it's because the police can't remove the tents from the sidewalk. There's a ruling in California that said they couldn't do that because police were moving people's tents because it's on public property, but then eventually the government decided, you know, it's like you shouldn't be able to touch, you know, people's personal property or whatever. And now there's a bunch of tents. So what do you think? Should you err on love or principle? Because obviously that situation is creating a lot of problems because it's moving towards love, or what a lot of people think to be love.
My question would be, why are there so many tents? Is it because your homeless population is looking for a place to stay?
Yes, it is that housing is either too expensive or...
Then there are solutions to that don't involve people having to live in tents. And therefore, if you solve the core problem of, oh, these people no longer have to live in tents, therefore we're no longer fighting to get tents off the street. And that's another really important thing, that when you're talking about love and principle and accountability, is the fact that, like, there may be underlying issues that you're not aware of in situations. And the reason why someone may respond a certain way may be out of ignorance or pain or, you know, any number of reasons. So if you have a way of, you know, finding what the actual problem was, then you can address it that way and solve both issues.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. I wish there were easier solutions to short-term, like, problems. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
yep.
You took a route that I didn't expect you to go to, which is okay, why are the tents there? That's a great question to ask. That's fantastic. Like, that's exactly what I needed, I think, to know, because I'm like struggling with that. I'm like I am a big fan of the government not being able to move your personal property, but if it's on public property, then they can move it, right? And what if like you literally have nowhere to go. Like you don't have the ability to really travel because you don't have the money to travel. You're kind of stuck, and you can't go in any of the housing shelters because you're addicted to drugs, and it's too expensive to go to rehab. So you just keep on doing the drugs.
Yep.
Yeah, there's the whole system.
So many issues around homelessness
I know.
and the way they're treated, and like the solution to homelessness is to provide homes. And I know that has a lot of controversy, especially, from Americans, because for Americans, it's you pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Yeah.
What if you don't have bootstraps to pull yourself up from?
Mm.
Like, I totally agree with the fact that you make your life what it is. You are responsible for how the world is going to see you. However, we didn't all start with the same cards. We didn't even start playing the same game. Like, yeah,
that's actually a really good way to put it. Like, we didn't.
We didn't.
Like my buddy was raised, good amount of money, and turned out just fine. But he definitely sees the world very differently than I do. Who,
right.
I have to think about money all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's one of those things of like, if you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, sometimes it's helpful to figure out how did you get there? Why are you there? And that can draw some insight on how to get out. But yeah, I think one of the most important things for humans to remember is the fact that, like, we're so different. We have so many similarities that tie us together and make us one human race. And those should be honored and valued and discovered and explored more. But we also have so many differences that provide uniqueness and color and joy into life. Do you know how boring life would be if we didn't have Asian cuisine?
Dude.
I would be so sad.
I don't know, man. Panda Express is like
oh my God, I love
really
Panda Express.
necessary for me.
Vital.
There's this joke in jiu-jitsu. I don't know how to say it correctly, but I've heard it from a couple people. Because Panda Express, for some reason, has really caught on to the grappling community. Maybe the MMA, but at least jiu-jitsu. And it's like, I'm on PEDs, like, which normally means performance-enhancing drugs. Because jiu-jitsu is not really a tested sport, so you can be, like, roided out all you want. It's like, I'm on PEDs, like Panda Express diet.
Yeah. It's one of those things. So the easiest way for me to explain why diversity is so important is through food. Because potatoes are fantastic, but if you have mashed potatoes with no seasoning, they're the blandest things on the face of the planet.
They suck.
They're so bad. But if you add seasoning and spices to it,
even just pepper.
Yeah. Right? You can have, your classic meat and potatoes look. You can go, Asian. You can go Indian. You can go so many different routes with a single potato.
Yeah.
That you wouldn't be able. Yeah.
It's a dope plant.
Yep.
But no, I know what you mean. Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to do that many things with a potato if you didn't have hundreds of cultures influencing what they did with a potato. And just, God, Americans and their food is we do food really well when we borrow inspiration from the cultures around us.
Well, that's what America is, I'm pretty sure. Like in my opinion, I think we're extremely well. The thing is, like, we have such a diverse culture, right? Because or we have so many different cultures is a better way to put it. And that's because for like 100 years you could just like sail into America. Like everyone was like, I'm coming. Like, this is just definably better than where I'm from. And so we don't have that anymore. And I think, like, once we cut that off, there's some problems that we got to talk about.
Yeah.
Tough stuff, man. Dude, it's been tough. I've had, like, a lot of long conversations. So I wish I was more energetic for today, but I've had just, like, a lot of long conversations this week.
Yeah, no, that's totally fine.
Yeah, about like how to socialize is one, because like
I don't know the answer to that one.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough for me. I thought it was pretty intuitive for most of my life, and now I'm like, questioning a lot of it because it's worked up until now, and now I'm starting to feel the effects. It might be the pandemic. It might just be me socially developing in like a different way than others, but I just don't understand how people work anymore. I'm like, oh, let's go for a walk, let's have a conversation, and no one wants to do that, even though that's like pretty regular thing to want to do. I don't know.
I would chalk a lot of it up to the pandemic.
You think so?
Yeah, just because
I hope so.
Being secluded does not humans don't do well by being secluded. But yeah, I took like an online personality quiz out of boredom, and one of the descriptions that it gave was like me being a social chameleon, and I was like, oh, that's a really interesting term, because and what it means is that you blend into your social surroundings, you adapt so that you can be a part of it, instead of like sticking to one true self in different places.
Yeah.
So I very much, on one-on-one settings, I'm a lot more talkative.
Oh, yeah. Like, every time I talk, like, we work in the mailroom together, just so you guys know. Like, that's how I know Cassidy. We went to high school for 4 years. We weren't really that close. We ran cross-country and track. But now we're in the mailroom together, so I feel like we're pretty friendly at this point. Yeah.
So, like, in these one-on-one settings, a lot more talkative, a lot more open. But even when I get into a group of, like, 3 or 4, I sit back a lot more, and just observe the surrounding to see, what is the topic of conversation? Do I connect with it? How can I, should I participate, or should I just sit back and let other people talk? And which I'm totally fine with, because I like observing people and listening to the world around me. But I found that it means that people don't really know me and don't really know who I am. So part of it is, if other people don't know who I am, do I know who I am? So that's a fun paradox to think about.
Yeah, I have a similar issue, actually, just coming from a different direction. So, like, I have absolutely no problem being, like, pretty securely in most of the conversations that I'm in. I don't frequently take too much of a back seat. But I don't know what I should be saying. So I just say whatever. I just say whatever comes up, and sometimes that's not the right deal. And so some things that I say is like, because people, it's more frequent that I will approach someone to talk than they will approach me. And so, like, I have to think, like, okay, what's going on that, like, they might want to know about? Like, what's fun? What might start a conversation? And so, like, I'll say something, and so so everything that everyone else knows about me is about what I know about myself. And I don't have any other feedback, and so I don't know what else, like, people know me as, apart from the things that I'm currently interested in. Yeah. I don't know. It's a weird puzzle. You ever think, like, dang, I think I'm autistic?
Yes, yeah. Actually, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Let's go.
Yeah, no, I have a couple times looked up, like,
Asperger's?
signs of autism, just to, like, see what hits.
And it's like everything? It's like all of it?
Yeah. It's really funny. I had this is part of the problem with being CS your entire life, is like, you don't go to get tested for anything. So you're just like,
I'm having some crazy issues with the school system right now, and, like, that definitely could have been solved much earlier.
Yep. It's one of those things where you're like, maybe if I had an explanation for what this is, I'd be good. But yeah, there are certain
or at least
sounds,
like a cursory understanding.
Yeah.
Like, okay, ADHD is like a really, really widespread term that can mean a lot of different things for a lot of people. But in short terms, kid don't do school too well. Like, we gotta figure this one out a different way.
Yeah. So there are certain sounds that I can't stand. Like, you know, sleeping bags?
Yeah.
Those feelings and the sound that it makes when it rubs together.
Oh, really? You don't like that?
I hate it. It took me so, like, puffy jackets are the same.
Yeah.
So winters were always hard because I wanted to be warm, but I hated the feeling and I hated the sound.
Are you saying this connects to autism?
Yeah. Because
really?
there's, like, on the spectrum of things,
course.
there are certain sounds or colors or noises or feelings that will throw people off. And usually it's not that big of a deal. But, like, I would refuse to stuff my sleeping bag or refuse to, like, it took me a really long time to be okay with
Stuffing your sleeping bag.
stuffing my sleeping bag or wearing a puffy jacket or
Really?
and even now if I'm looking for winter clothing, I'll look for clothing that isn't that texture.
Yeah.
So like my Carhartt, love that jacket. It is comfortable, it's warm, it's big, and it doesn't have any of the sound and noise that I don't like.
That's
so,
dope, yeah.
Yeah, so that was something that, like, talking to my mom, she was like, you know, every now and then the thought crosses my mind that you might be a little autistic. And I just,
Yeah.
yep. She told me that, and I was like,
Great.
thanks? Did you want to do something about that?
That's awesome, Mom.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, I don't think it would matter too much if I got an actual diagnosis
That's
or not.
what I
'cause,
say
like,
as well.
I'm going to be who I am, and I'm going to find a way to make myself work in the world. And
Yeah.
do I probably need therapy? Absolutely.
I think so.
But
I haven't gotten any yet. I might need it, but
either.
I haven't gotten any. I've been a good enough therapist for myself. Like, I don't know. I don't know what's really going on until it happens. Because
Yeah.
I feel great right now.
Mm-hmm.
I know what's happening, like, generally in my mental state, but, you know,
Yeah.
I'm hanging in there all right. Homework
Yeah.
is my biggest problem.
I think for me, I'm very much a person who, in order to figure things out, I have to talk things through.
Yeah.
So, you know, I spend hours on the phone with my mom just talking through my problems.
Yeah.
And like
I call my parents a lot also.
Yeah,
I actually do the exact same thing as you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
My mom admitted to me that when I was at the upper school and was a lot more on the ranting side of things versus
Yes.
the actual solving the issue side of things.
I agree.
She would just hold the phone away from her or like put the phone down, do other things, and then come back to it, which I don't blame her because I could go on rants forever and they were boring and repetitive. But yeah, just being able to talk things through and then talk through the emotion and let it go and then solve the problem
Yeah.
is the way that I solve a lot of my issues.
That's good. I like to tackle things when I have, like I don't have much motivation for many things. Also, we got like 3 minutes, so I guess we'll be wrapping this up soon. But I don't have much motivation to do things that I don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Some people can just put their head down and do what they got to do, like get their homework done. And I don't know. I don't have a problem going to work. That's never been an issue for me. It's just like it's mostly homework. Mostly homework. And some people can just do it. Go ahead. It's no problem. Like how actually really quick, how do you see homework? How do you work with that?
I'm a big procrastinator, so I don't do things until the very last minute because that deadline gives me enough pressure to like actually get the work done.
I do the same thing.
Yeah. And I've tried self-imposed deadlines, and they don't work that well.
They don't work for me at all.
I don't take myself seriously enough to have a self-imposed deadline.
So it's not that you do the work ahead of time to get generally good grades from what I know of you.
I'm just naturally good at producing work.
Dude, I really wish.
I know. Part of
Yeah.
it, I definitely understand why people want to be able to do that and just naturally be good at getting good grades. But it creates kind of this imposter syndrome of like, do I deserve this? Because for the book reports that we did in history, I really hope Peter isn't listening. But I
haven't submitted mine yet, so don't worry about it. You're good. You're in a much better place than me.
I don't read the books.
Yeah.
And I can come up with a book report that's going to get me a B+.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things where it's like, naturally, the work that I do and the thought that I put into it produces good work.
Yeah.
And I've had to tell myself a lot of times that, like, the grade I get is the grade I deserve.
Mm-hmm.
And that my work is good because I do good work. That's the thought process I've had to drill into me. Because I will frequently sit there and be like, no,
yeah,
I don't deserve this. My work isn't good. People just think I'm good. And that's not healthy. That's not good.
Well, thanks for that perspective, because I'm really struggling with that. I'm like I really hate every moment of homework that I have to do. Like, I get so depressed. I like call my mom. I'm like, I don't know how to deal with this, man.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so and everyone that I want to go to for advice doesn't have just kind of can do it. So
Yeah, no.
It's all right. Well, thanks, Cassidy, for being on. It's been fun. It's gone pretty fast, actually. It's 59 minutes in. And is there anything you want to plug? Is there anything you put out? Do you have any businesses? Or are you just hanging out?
Just hanging out.
All right, everyone. Cassidy Proctor is just hanging out. There's everyone who hears that alarm at the end of every show. Well, thanks everyone for listening. Hug another person today. Just tell them they're great, and I'll catch you next this coming Tuesday. I don't know who I'm having on, but we'll figure it out. You can watch the show on YouTube if you want. I'm behind on uploads, but they're coming eventually. All right, peace. Bye.